Well, I hope you all enjoyed our last episode on cottage cheese, and I hope you had success when making it. Now, like I said, today we're making mozzarella cheese. What we have here in the pot are 2 gallons of fresh milk, fresh out of the cow. One of the benefits I have with getting fresh milk is I don't have to worry about heating it up. Cow's internal body temperature is about between 101 and 103 degrees anyway, and this recipe calls for keeping your milk at 91 degrees, both during the culturing and the setting phase and during the cooking the curd phase. We'll get to all that in just a minute. Step 1, once you've got your milk, is you're going to need some culture. This is called thermophilic culture. This can be obtained from any of the online websites. Like I said, cheesemaking.com, getculture.com, thecheesemaker.com, all kind of places.com can sell you culture. You can make your own also. I choose to buy mine. So anyway, this is enough culture for 2 to 4 gallons. I'm going to add 1 packet of thermophilic culture to the milk and give it a stir and then let it set for 1 hour. Well, 1 hour and 1 wardrobe change later, we're ready for step 2. Step 2 is you add your rennet. Rennet is the enzyme that causes the milk to firm up and set. That's what gives you your curds. Now you can get both animal or vegetable rennet. I forget what plant the vegetable rennet is made from. The animal rennet, we'll get to that later. But anyway, the important thing to remember is that when you use vegetable rennet, it's double strength, so you use half as much. And there are instructions on the bottle. It says 1/4 teaspoon sets 2 gallons of milk. So we have 1/4 teaspoon. Now, the best way to do this is not just to add a 1/4 teaspoon to the pot. You add the 1/4 teaspoon of rennet to a 1/2 cup of water. You dilute it, and then you pour the water into the milk and spread it around. That helps distribute the rennet more easily. My first batch of cheese I made, I just put the 1/4 teaspoon into here. It didn't get evenly distributed. It did not make very good cheese. So, in the rennet goes.
So in goes our rennet. Making sure we evenly distribute it. And then we're going to stir for a full minute. Now if you buy unhomogenized milk, as you can see the yellow on the top there and the cream that has risen, you're going to want to do what's called top stirring, which is taking what's on top and stirring it. Basically it's like folding down and taking what's on top and stirring it down in. Not just stirring here at the bottom, but stirring the cream from the top all the way in, because we don't want the cream to separate. We want this to be one homogenized batch of mozzarella cheese. Once we've stirred it in, put the lid on, and we're going to let it sit for 15 minutes. After about 15 or 20 minutes, you can let this go longer if you need to, you're going to test it. What you're looking for is called a clean break. When you put a knife in there, we want to see whether the knife cuts through it cleanly and the cut forms back on itself, and you can see the solid and the liquid, the curds in the way, separate when you do that. Once you get to that point, we're ready for the next step. Now the next step is cutting the curd. What you want to do is cut it into 1/2 to 1/4 inch cubes. You're going to go down and make slices, make strips, about 1/2 to 1/4 inch apart. Go in one direction. And when you're done, turn it 90 degrees and cut the curds in the opposite direction. Now when you're done cutting it in both directions, you're going to turn your knife at a 45-degree angle, and you're going to try to cut along like this, to cut them into cubes. And again, once we go through all in one direction, we're going to turn it 90 degrees and cut in the other direction. And now that we have them cut in every direction, and you can see them just starting to sink and the yellow whey starting to rise, we let them sit for 5 minutes before we do anything else. 5 minutes are up. We want to give it a stir. Give it a gentle stir for a little bit, and then we're going to let it sit for about an hour while the curds will cook. And I'll show you how I'll let mine sit. I like to put mine in the oven. Covered, of course. Off, of course. This is a gas oven, and with the pilot light in there and the insulated walls,
This will keep the milk at the proper temperature while I am waiting for it to cook without having to actually add any more heat to it. We'll see what happens in an hour. Actually, you're going to want to stir every 10 minutes during the first half hour. Just pull it out, or wherever you happen to have it stashed. Give it a quick stir, and then set your timer for 10 minutes again. Stir it 3 times for the first 30 minutes, and then let it sit for the last 30 minutes. It's been an hour, so we're going to get our cheese out of the oven and get ready to strain. Now there's 2 ways to do this. You can pour this through a colander into some cheesecloth. What I prefer to do, because I want to save this whey, is it's basically all one giant lump now. I'm just going to reach in, grab the cheese, and place it into the cheesecloth, and I'm going to save the whey, and we'll see what we're going to do with that in just a minute. Alright, so here's what we're going to do with a clean hand. I'm going to reach in, I'm going to grab my curds. Now, one way to do this would be to strain into another pot, but this is one of my biggest pots, so I don't have another one to strain into. So I'm just going to take these curds and place them into the cheesecloth, and then I'll hang the cheesecloth up for about 3, maybe 4 hours. And I'm going to put this in the refrigerator, and I'll show you the beauty of this recipe, because you can stop at this point. Well, once you hang it, you can stop and pick it up again the next day. One of the problems with cheese making is it takes a long time from beginning to end. Very few of us have 8 hours to devote all at one time, especially if you're working with the nighttime milking. And here we have the cheese draining over the sink. We'll hang it for 2 to 4 hours, or however long it takes for most of the water to drip out. Well, it's been a couple hours now, and the cheese is done draining. So I'm going to untie it and see what we've got. If you can see here, we have one blob of mozzarella. Now the beauty of this recipe is that if I don't want to do it now, I can put this in a Ziploc bag, stick it in the fridge, and do the next step tomorrow. Well, the recipe says you can store it overnight and you can eat it the next day. In this case, we've stored it over about 8 nights because I haven't had time to make cheese this past week. So, got this out of the fridge now. Also, I stored and kept the whey to heat up and do this next step. You can use water if you throw this out, but whey will give you a little bit extra flavor. So what we want to do is go ahead and bring this up to about 160-65 degrees, and we'll use that in our stretching of the cheese. Also, you're going to want to add half a cup of kosher salt, or any kind of salt really. I use kosher salt because it dissolves quicker, to your water or your whey while you're waiting to bring this up to about 165 to 170 degrees. It's going to be extremely hot to the hands, but that's what we're going to need. Now, while that's heating up, go ahead and lid that up so the temperature can rise quicker. We're going to want to cut our mass of curds. This already looks like mozzarella cheese, but not quite yet. We're going to want to cut this up into about 1-inch cubes, and I'll show you what we're going to do with that in just a minute. Alright, our whey is about 170 degrees. Now it's time for the next step. Our tools we're going to have is, we're going to have a bucket and a bowl here to set the heated up curds in. We've got a spoon to fish them out of the hot whey. And we've got a bowl of cold water. This is very important. I'll show you why in just a minute. So we're going to work in small batches. We're going to take the cubed up curds, and we're going to put them very carefully down into the whey. We've got about 2 pounds of cheese over here, so we're going to do about 1 pound at a time right now. And what you're looking for, leave them in for 30, 45 seconds. That's enough for right now. Stir them around. What you're looking for is you want them to be able to squeeze them. You want them to be soft but not gooey. All right. Pull one up. Check it every once in a while. It's soft but still firm in the middle. We want it to be soft and just starting to get squishy in the middle. Keep stirring. And I've got the heat off right now. temperature drops too much, we'll add the heat back to it. Alright, see how it's squishing? We're almost getting there. We don't want it to be taffy caramel. We want it to be sort of between a hard cheese and a soft cheese. And what you want to do is check your biggest pieces and your smallest pieces. Alright, they're starting to be squishy. I think they're good. So, we're going to fish them all out, put them in a bowl. If this was your only batch, you could pour these out into a strainer and pour your whey down the drain. But since I've got another batch to do, I don't want to waste my nice hot whey. Now I have a bowl of hot, gooey mess. This is what this bowl is for. Is we're going to form this into a ball. It is very, very hot. That's what you want. That's what you want the bowl for. Just cool your hands off. Because this, well, doesn't hurt, but it's hot water. Alright, so get it formed into a ball. So now our curds are nice and stretchy. What you want to do is we're going to form them all into a ball. Now mine, we're having a little difficulty forming into a ball. You really don't want to squeeze them very much because you'll squeeze out the cream and you'll have too dry a cheese. Try to get them all formed into a nice ball. Squeeze them and fold them. Not squeeze, but stretch and fold. Alright, well I finally succeeded in forming into a ball. This took longer than I thought, more difficult than I thought. And you can see as I squeeze, that white that comes out, that's the cream. We don't want that. So try your best not to squeeze. What you want to do is you want to have it just stretch and fold it. Now ideally, this should be like pulling taffy. It should be nice and loose. This is not yet nice and loose. So I'm going to actually put it back in some of the hot water for just a little bit. Alright, I've reheated it. As you can see, it's starting to stretch. What you want to do, stretch it like taffy. Pull your hands off while you're doing it. Stretch it and fold it. And stretch it a little bit more. If you need to, dunk it down in your hot water. You'll know you're at the right consistency when it starts to stretch under its own weight. I think the problem that I'm having is I didn't heat it up enough at the beginning. It's supposed to look like a gooey mess when you get ready to start stretching. And mine was still firm enough to have its own shape. So I didn't heat it up long enough. There we go. See how it's starting to stretch under its own weight? That's what we're looking for. So unlike me, heat yours up until it starts to do that on its own. Alright, here we go. Stretchy, stretchy. Woo! Hot hands. Alright, now, pull and fold. And pull again. Alright, and when you're done, when you stretched it about 6 to 10 times, you have your options. You can form it into a ball and put it in the fridge, or, while it's still hot, you can press it into a form and stick it in the refrigerator overnight. And the next morning you're going to have, in this case, a disc of mozzarella cheese in that form. And it's ready for slicing, shredding, however you want to use your mozzarella cheese. Well, there you have it. Mozzarella cheese from beginning to end. Good luck. I'll go ahead and get it situated again. Got it? Alright, welcome to our next episode. Today we're going to, you know what, we'll stop because I always start off every sentence with the word alright. Tilt it up just a little bit so we can get, there you go. Alright. Welcome to our next episode of Cheesemaking. Today we're going to be making some, what are we making today?